Guess who's back, back again. Guess who's back. Morgan's back, tell a friend.
What's up? Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Hi, Nick.
I was going to just go and sing it properly, but I'm like, if I change the lyrics, maybe people will like disguise the fact that I suck at singing and it'll just work.
Yeah,
Did it
or
work?
like, yeah,
No? Oh, shit.
Or YouTube's content ID comes in and is like, that's copyright material if you sang it too well.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Good job, Mark.
We planned that one out well. Hi, everyone. If you're here, drop a hi in the comments. Happy Friday. Good to be back.
Hello, everyone. So we got to go and introduce it to Morgan, our brand new theme, and that is the first 2 to 3 minutes here. What is our question of the day, Morgan?
Oh, question of the day for today. In the good spirit of my recent respite and vacation. So question of the day. If you had a week off, fully paid, vacation, right? Everything's covered. What country in the world would you go to? Where would you go for a week?
Throw it in the comments, guys. Where would you go? What city or what country? Where would you go?
Do you have a favorite place? I mean, I go back to Italy. I was in Italy. I would, definitely spend my time there. How about you, Nick?
I have to ask, though, before we jump to me.
Oh, yeah.
If you could only go to one city that you went to and you had to spend the whole time in that one spot, where would you go?
Such a hard question. I honestly think there's this little town in Lake Como called Varenna, and we did a few days there. I would definitely spend it there. Cute, great restaurants, views of the lakes and the mountains and the Swiss Alps, Swiss Italian Alps in the distance. Beautiful setting. I would totally do a full week there. I'm loving the answers coming in, by the way. Makes you want to go travel again. How about you?
I'd want to go.
Yeah.
All my friends that have been to Bali and Thailand haven't stopped talking about it. And so if it isn't a sign, I had a friend that was going for a 2-week vacation. And ended up going for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So obviously it was pretty good. Although me and our friends were pretty sure he was going to come back with a wife, but that never happened. So obviously it was a good place.
It was 6 months of fun for sure. I've heard Bali's amazing. That might be on the next to travel to.
The condo we stayed at was like outrageously cheap per month, and man,
I'm seeing
Turkey, Norway,
Fiji,
Germany,
Barcelona.
I could see myself spending some time.
I could see yourself in Germany. You beer nerd, man. You could spend a whole year there and not get your fill.
Actually, if we're going on the beer side and maybe a touch of chocolate.
Oh,
Belgium.
Definitely. All right. I love all of these answers and keep on dropping them in the chat. We'd love to see them this morning. It's great to see so many faces and names, and thanks everyone for being here. Today, Nick, we're talking about maybe the most powerful tool in a social seller's toolbook or tool belt. I can't speak English. I'm bag. I'm just coming back out of vacation. Can I put words together? The most powerful. I know, right? The most powerful tool in a social seller's tool belt.
Yeah. And I think this gets really misunderstood because I get a lot of SDRs that reach out and they're like, I would love to post more content and comment, but I don't have a month or more to wait and my managers won't let me.
Totally.
And so I've been trying to go and break that apart. I was like, will your managers not let you, or they just won't, you think that it's going to take too long, so they won't let you do what you need to do. I'm going to break a myth right now.
Oh, break away.
Commenting shouldn't take months to book meetings.
Absolutely.
And so digging this apart, when you're commenting, why is it taking so long to get results? I've heard, well, you're pitching too soon, that what you're talking about isn't relevant, or you're just not being human and having a real conversation, which we've all been there and we've all seen pitch slaps. But Let's compare this to doing home renovations.
Okay.
If I'm standing in my house saying I want to go and renovate something,
Mhm.
before I say that, and you cold call me, message me, email me, trying to sell me on lumber and different supplies, am I going to pay attention? Is it relevant? No, because
Mm-mm.
it's not on my priority list. The moment that I mentally make that, why change? I would love to go and finish my office in the basement. And if somebody started sending me like shelving ideas or like different like desks ideas, now it's highly relevant and I'll take that call. But what gets missed in all of the sessions I've been doing with SDRs is they start talking about a solution that nobody said they had a problem for. This is the biggest issue why you're not booking meetings with comments is because you're feature dropping. You're talking about how you can solve what your solution is, but nobody is going far enough back to talk about what is a problem and how does it show up in your customers' lives. What are those signs and symptoms like a cold that they don't realize are a big problem that good enough is pretty freaking expensive and it's because of X, Y, and Z. When you can nail those X, Y, and Z,
Hmm.
that
Well,
that's when you book meetings.
and actually, so Kyle Williams came on the podcast, episode 81. Highly recommend anybody who's joined us this morning to listen to that episode. It is mind blowing. But one of the things that he brings up a little further on in the conversation is that relevance is a function of targeting. So we have, and this is sort of comes down to like there's some semantics here, but there's a lot of conversation about relevance, quote unquote, as a way to do messaging. And Kyle's argument is that relevance actually starts with targeting. So it's a your targeting informs whether or not your message is going to resonate. And it's going to inform whether or not you're going to reach the right person. And all of this has to do with social selling and commenting, right? So if you aren't targeting the right people, if you don't understand why this person is the right person and the problem that they have, and you just kind of go out and you're like, you want to buy my stuff, which is mostly what people do when they pitch that. Yeah, you have money. Do you want to buy my thing?
More money, more problems. I
Right?
got you.
And that's not good enough. That's a low quality way to do commenting, and you are going to get low quality responses from using comments like that. You have to target and create relevance from understanding who you're going after and why you're reaching them and the problems that they have. And honestly, actually, Nick, what you're pointing to, one of the funniest things I know you and I talk a lot about is that people don't always understand their own problems.
No.
They don't
Or
see it, right? It's
or
like a
who it's
fish in
relevant
water.
to.
Or exactly, or like how the dots connect.
But I'm talking about I talked to quite a few mid-market and enterprise SDRs, and they're telling me it's been the hardest it's ever been. And when I go and peel back their messaging, they're telling VPs of sales or like C-suite how what their reps are doing day to day is a problem.
Mm,
Where in a VP's role is sales ops on a day to day basis?
right.
You know what? However many dollars an hour, that half an hour that you just took is what they call a waste of time. It's not
Hmm.
an investment. To turn it into an investment, you need to do a diagnosis and you need to talk about the problems that are stepping into their shoes and understanding their world. Their what happens in their workday? What are they responsible for? What are they judged on? And quite frankly, if you can't talk to a VP of sales, join the club. That's okay. Not many of us in this chat have been a VP of sales. Go down. Where's the next person? The manager? The director? Have you been one of those? Have you talked to enough of them? This is our superpower being an SDR or even an AE that started as an SDR.
Hmm.
We talk to more executives, C suite, certain personas than they do. So we get to hear conversations, we get to hear those trends. That's our superpower. So if you're uncomfortable and you're not quite sure, this is where one of my favorite comment strategies comes in. Ask for help.
Always.
I will tell you that if you are unethical and use the bait and switch on this,
Oh,
you are going to get yourself into so much trouble because that
yeah.
is the worst way to use this. The only good way to use this is to ask genuinely, to understand that person's role, to step in their shoes, understand how they explain what they do, to go and understand who hired them, what they're judged on, what they would change about their role, where they see their role going. Step into their shoes and really understand. I know one thing that Megan Mishak does really well is she asks roles and goals.
Mhm.
Ask, how would you explain your role? Or what are you responsible for? And what are like a couple of your goals in the next 2 years?
And actually, it's really crucial. Let's sort of tie some threads together here. A lot of the times, yeah, so I obey, and I don't know if I've ever coined this on the show, Nick, but I obey coffee house rules. So for coffee house rules are casual conversation. So if you're sitting across somebody in a coffee house, in a cafe, in a roastery or whatever, and you're having a conversation with them, and the other person says, yeah, we're rolling out this new software suite in our company, just in sort of casual conversation, and we're really excited for it. And they look at me, and then I'm like, "So, what are your roles as your position?" That's weird. That is extremely extremely weird.
That's
So,
disconnected.
coffee house rules are about creating casual conversation. So, asking for help needs to flow from the original post. It needs to flow from the original context that somebody is posting. So if somebody's saying, "Hey, we just announced our Series B," that's not an opportunity to jump into the comments and start saying, "Hey, yeah, I mean, tell me more about what your role is going to look like in the series." Like, mi- ugh, that's just, like that's not the opportunity to do so. People post a lot of content, and different people in different roles post a lot of content. So not every single post is an opportunity to ask for help. Not every right. Think about coffee house rules here. Think about the art of casual conversation. You are just genuinely trying to connect with this person and better understand them. So if you're, this is a template, a framework that you can use, but it is not always appropriate to try and connect the original piece of content to what you want to do as the seller. You have to figure out how would this work in a casual conversation over a cup of coffee. That to me is the important mental framework behind asking for advice or asking for help.
And if you're wondering what this could look like, so
Hmm.
somebody puts out a post and it could be anything and you just comment. Somebody puts out a sales post and they're like, our company does X, Y, and Z. And you're just like, oh, that's amazing. You don't usually see that combination together and you leave it at that. And then they respond back and they keep that conversation going.
Hmm.
And then you could throw in there, I was kind of surprised to see you talk about this. I didn't think it would fall under your role. It made me
Hmm.
realize that I actually don't know your role that well and I probably should.
Hmm.
Would you be open to me interviewing you just to get to understand your role? Because I have to sell to people like you. And I think the worst thing is when you're trying to have a conversation with someone you know nothing about.
See, and that's just so flowy. It just feels natural. After a couple back and forth, you're like, "Oh, I guess I didn't know what I thought I knew. Can you help me?" And it's like the same thing when asking for a mentor. People love to be recognized and empowered, and in some ways like respected and in control and all the rest of it. Like those are social psychological things. So in the same way, like asking somebody to be your mentor is feels great being the person who's being asked. It also can feel great if it's done well to be the person to help educate you, to be the person to help tell you a little bit more. And not everybody's going to be down for it. Like, well, let's just be clear, some people
Yeah.
are assholes about it.
Some
Honestly.
people are busy and
Yeah,
they
and
don't see the value in it, or it's
right.
not something they're interested in. And
And
you know
that's
what?
fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But
They're just not the right person.
the reason why I say start here is because the next one is finding relevant conversations.
Mm.
And
Actually, before we jump, can I say one more thing?
no,
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
fire
know.
away.
I'm only coming back and you're like, "Do you have a set amount of time, Morgan?" Actually, the thing that had come to mind is that the number one mistake we see, you and I both, companies make when they do social selling is that they think they know more about their customers than they do. And so
Fair.
what they do is that they'll spin up, and we don't recommend this, but they'll spin up some traditional outbound motion for LinkedIn, and they will send cold connection requests and DMs and InMails and all the rest of the very direct engagement activities, assuming they know what those customers want because they did market research, because they, all the traditional sort of sales methodologies. The reason this is so powerful is that it also can help you challenge your own assumptions about what people want, what your audience wants. When you start asking for advice, asking for help, asking questions, either to actually just have a plain old interview or just to social listen in, or do social listening and just kind of listen to the ways that they're talking about their problems in the comments instead of over a call. Those things can help you understand your audience more, so then the next time you send a DM or the next time you send a connection request, it's going to be formulated in a way that's more resonant, in a way that's going to reach the right person with their problems. So this comment strategy is good on its own in a way to book meetings and to get in front of people, but it is also supportive of all of your other efforts on the platform to just get better and build that better mental model about who you're trying to target and how you're trying to reach them.
Great point. And it ties into the next one really well too, because when you do this well,
Mm-hmm.
and it you comment and it blows up, that's a great post. It's been
Great post.
validated.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about on this next one is got to find the right conversations. So what are those signs and symptoms? What are the things that people are complaining about, talking about before they buy your solution? This is why it pays to know your customer better than anyone else, not their solution that they bought, the problem that they felt and the way they felt it and experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if sales is your thing, maybe it's SDRs whining is a strong word, that they're not happy with their cold calling or their framework, or they're trying to ask about openers, or they're saying that their emails aren't getting read and that there's something wrong with their reply rates, or that they can't figure out who to talk to, or but you're finding the way they actually say it and searching that in regular LinkedIn, searching that and finding those posts to join that conversation and not stuff it down your solution down their throat.
Mm-mm.
It's to join the conversation with Morgan was said about the coffee chat. Just continue it. Yes, and yeah, you know what? That was one of the things I hated too was when I got started, nobody told me who to call. And I swore like I spent over 50% of my time just trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then they respond. If they don't respond, move on. Keep going. Like you're going to be doing 10, 20, 40, 50 of these in an hour or a
Mm-hmm.
half an hour. But the thing you need to realize is that only about 6% of people engage on social platforms, every platform.
Yeah.
So these people that are posting about this and commenting about this are that 6%,
Mm-hmm.
but the other 90 plus percent watch, lurk in the background, and they're listening in, but they're not comfortable to go and comment on this yet. So the reason why this relevant conversation works is because it's like the kid in class that raised their hand and asked the question that nobody else wanted to go and ask, but wanted to know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started out on a high level, a problem that everybody has, and then it got a little bit deeper to a problem that they experience all the time and really want to know the answer to, but didn't want to feel dumb or didn't want to go and ask or whatever the scenario is. But because you're having a casual conversation, people want to listen. They actually want to join. And you would be surprised how many people will go and send you a connection request saying, I was actually just working on that, or I was just trying to figure that out, or we are just dealing with that right now. Could I book a meeting with you to go and explore that a little bit more or like talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
And this is how you go and switch to getting meetings instantly, and you can book meetings every day. But the hard part is trying to find those conversations and trying to go and not use the marketing and bullshit jargon that we use as professionals and using the words and the symptoms and the way it's felt by our customers. A great place to look for these if you're trying to go and hop, skip, and jump is go to your case studies on your website
Hmm.
and look for the quotations. So originally with the flow of case studies, they'll start with the problem statement and they'll say what happened, what was happening. That is your invitation. And it also tells you how people are judging this particular situation at that level of persona. So a lot of time it'll be a senior person. What I do when I'm building out a campaign is I take 10, 20, or 30 of these. Sometimes it takes more. And I throw them in a spreadsheet and I line them up and I see if I can find a pattern in all the case studies.
Hmm.
And then I go and test my messaging. Once I get a positive 10 where I'm getting better than an 80% reply rate, then I'll spool it up and I'll do more.
Well, and I don't want to lose the thread on something that's so crucial that you pointed out, which is that when you're commenting, you're building in public. And so, if we take, which is true, as given that most social media users on Twitter, on LinkedIn, whatever, are passive consumers, that means that the engagers have leverage. It's a fulcrum, right? You have the weight on the the engineering diagram. You have a lot of weight here, and you can put only a little weight to get exert a lot of effort. It's the same thing. You have leverage. So because you're commenting on somebody's posts, it's not just for the person who you're commenting on. Obviously, that can be a part of it, and it's not just the person who posted. You could be replying to a comment, right, with something else. It is also for all of the people who watch the comments and who observe the people's posts. And by no means is every comment going to be viewed by every single person who sees the post. That's not how it works. But you and I both have gotten inbound connection requests, inbound meeting requests, probably, I mean, dozens of them off of really good comments from people who simply observe. They are passive consumers of the platform. And so, if we're thinking of comments as only a direct engagement strategy, meaning you're finding a post and you're commenting on it to get in front of the person who posted, or you are commenting as a reply to somebody else's comment because you want to get in front of that person, who you're replying to, that's not the only use case for commenting. It is also kind of leaning indirect in the way of getting in front of all of the other people who don't post or comment but use the platform. And those people, the 90%, whatever the number is, are also can be also in your key audience. They're just, remember, the major way people recommend you to try and reach them is through a cold connection request, a cold DM, or an email. And now you're leveraging comments to get in front of them in a passive way and in a non-intrusive way so that they get excited to engage with you.
One of the things I see with comment strategies, and this is one of the things I was testing when we were doing our building our LinkedIn in 30,
Mm,
is you would try and find people using Sales Nav commenting in VP or C suite. They don't really post that much. It's only a very select few that really see the value of social and use it to its fullest advantage.
mhm.
But, but
But
the users, the users of your product and service are out there struggling right now. Do you know what happens when you help somebody that is an end user of your product see real value and you can help them with a problem that you know exists, especially if you did that role? They start to trust you. They find you as a credible source. And when you start to have these conversations over and over, you can ask for an introduction to the manager.
Mhm.
But because you've been listening, because you've been building up your understanding of their exact problem, the way it's felt, instead of stuffing a solution down their throat, you can actually talk to them. It's like, hey, I've been helping so and so with this. And it sounds like it's something that all the SDRs are struggling with right now. Would you like to bring us in for a lunch and learn, maybe to go and chat about it? Do you think that would be helpful for your team? But see, now you start bridging the gaps and you can go bottom up. Sometimes social selling is easier to go bottom up because what you're doing is you're building a big audience so that all the people, SDRs, AEs, marketers, engineers, everybody is on LinkedIn or Reddit or a different platform, but you're getting people at a scale, trust at scale by commenting with these people and building them up as your audience. And then you can advance up because they'll start to recommend you, or they'll send and put in a Slack channel and you become a known, recognized name. So when you cold call or you email or you reach out, it's not cold.
Mm-mm.
You've earned the right. And this is how it becomes a strategy versus trying to scale luck. Because scaling luck, if I was counting on a lottery ticket to go and retire.
Yeah, it's not the it's not the most effective strategy. I know we have a couple more strategies to go through. So as we're going through them and we're discussing these, as you have questions, drop them in chat. Right? Ask us these things. If you have specifics or if you're like, what do you mean by this? Drop them in chat. We'd love to answer them. Um, One of the things to me that's so powerful, Nick, about commenting as well as we were talking through this, is that it is commenting is content creation. Like we have this idea that content is just a post or an image, and it's not just that, right? So if you've come to our live shows before in the past, we talk about content as a way to scale trust or to build trust at scale, because the algorithm does the work for you, where you can only have so much time to do one-on-one meetings. Your content can be a replacement for you in the board meeting rooms and all the rest. Comments are the same way. They also build trust at scale. It's not going to be the same sort of algorithmic reach as a simple post, but you are getting in front of your ICP persona. You are getting in front of people who want to potentially buy from you. You are building trust just by showing up. Again, leverage. You're one of 5-6% of people who are doing this on the platform, on any platform. So if you step up from just being a passive consumer, you have this massive opportunity to get in front of people.
Isabella just asked a good question. I want
Ooh,
to put
this
it
is a
up
great
because
question. Yeah.
we get this one a lot. So, quick question. You mentioned that most C suite isn't active on LinkedIn. How do you go around commenting and getting their attention in that scenario? Morgan, would you like to start?
Sure. So let's preface this just to add clarity. C Suite is active on LinkedIn. They are not necessarily posting more than their Series Bs, and they aren't necessarily commenting on other people's posts. It's actually very unusual to find VPs or C suites who are very active from the commenting and content perspective. But C suites log in all the time. They scroll. So the question is, who do they follow? Who are they paying attention to? Who are those accounts that they're looking at? Who's in their feed? Is it just their connections? Right now, there's sort of a scale here. Sometimes there's VPs and C suites who have literal zero likes, zero engagement over a very long time. And that's going to be harder to guess. But there are lots and lots of C suites within a specific industry vertical, if you have your targeting right, that you might be able to make a good educated guess about the 5 to 10 influencer accounts that they pay attention to, who they listen to, who they like, right? Who they may think about this. If you like a post, what happens on LinkedIn? Well, the comments pop up, right? So then are they going to scroll through the comments? So then the question that I ask is, okay, if these C-suite VPs are active on LinkedIn, but they're not posting or commenting, but they are reading, what are they reading? Who are they reading from? And how can I insert myself into that discussion? That would be how I would start.
Yeah. And the one thing you need to remember, whether you want to call it egotistical or whatever it is, people want to work with or listen to people that have done their job. So if you are looking for influencers, find the influencers that have done your ICP's job, that persona's job. So find somebody that's a VP of sales that switched to consulting. Find a VP of sales that has realized the power of social and is using it as a platform for demand.
Hmm.
Find 3 to 5 of those people. And this plays back to social listening and market research. You don't want to just comment and show up on a regular basis so you're trusted, which is the third strategy, but you want to pay attention to what questions they're asking, what questions are getting engagement, why, and
Yes.
dissect it in a healthy and intelligent way to figure out What is happening in their world that makes this relevant, makes this resonate, that's giving this reach? Going back to Kyle's framework, since Morgan's been bringing it up several times, Kyle Williams. But you got to dig in. And so even though everybody always says to me, "Well, Nick, I don't I it's always faster to go, top down."
Mhm.
Bullshit.
Agreed.
Most of the time, the people that you're talking to don't actually manage that P&L.
Mhm.
They're not worried about that. That's not on their day to day. That's not something they're responsible for. So sometimes you're actually better to go down a level. Sometimes it's easier to go work from the bottom up, but why not do both? LinkedIn, cold calling, emailing, you have multiple channels to access people, Slack, different communities like Pavilion or like industry associations. Leverage those to go and mingle with the people, read the content they're reading, see the articles that they're reading, watching, consuming, understand which ones are relevant and why, and start to really absorb yourself into that so you can have those conversations that are top of mind and you'll be top of feed. But if you start with the top, they want to know something that increases top line, increases bottom line, or manages risk. They don't give a shit about the day to day. This is why most SDRs fail to grab their attention because it's not relevant to their role. But if you
Mhm.
go down a step below, there might be in between the day to day and the future. So they're willing to entertain that conversation and they are great champions to take you up.
I just thought of an example here. This is completely hypothetical, but for example, let's say you have a lead routing automation suite, and lead routing is a big topic, right? So the way that most companies um, manage lead routing is sometimes it's sales ops, sometimes it's rev ops, sometimes it's just sales, sometimes it's a combo between sales and marketing. So first of all, you need to understand who's in charge. If you're selling lead routing automation, this is just an example, you need to understand who's in charge of the function in a company that you're going after. And it's possible that at different companies, it's different. So sometimes though, RevOps is in charge, right? That's part of their job. So most of the time, the error that sales professionals make is they say, RevOps is in charge of this function, so let's go to the CRO or the CEO. Because why? Like, I mean, think of the mental case here. They say, oh, you are the steward of RevOps. You are in charge of RevOps. Don't you care about lead automation software or lead routing automation, right? Don't, and then you craft a messaging and a pitch to this key stakeholder about making the lead routing much more efficient. The bottom up that Nick is talking about is I would go to the RevOps analyst, bottom tier RevOps person, and I would build a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
That's where I would start because why? Because the CRO or the CEO has never interacted with lead routing. I can almost guarantee you that is not in their day to day responsibilities. The RevOps analyst for sure has engaged
Yeah.
with lead routing.
It's a pain that they feel on a regular basis, and probably what is happening to continue this scenario is the next level up is asking what the hell's going on and why it's not working, and they're going, this this lead thing is just crap and it's not
Yeah.
working.
Uh
Well,
huh.
make it work.
But the reason why a lot of sales professionals don't do this is they say, well, the RevOps analyst doesn't have the power to sign off on a deal. So why am I investing my time and attention into someone who doesn't have the power to sign off on a deal? And the answer is because that RevOps analyst can go to the director of RevOps, can go to the CRO and CEO and say, I need budget for this. And they can make the case internally. And now Nate Nasrallah came on the show a couple of times over the last few weeks, and he has a ton of content about navigating complex sales and helping buyers lead the sale. That's essentially what's happening here. But from a commenting level, just to tie it back to today's theme, the reason that bottom up works is you're creating a relationship with somebody who's actually experiencing the problem that you solve. Whether or not they have the power to sign off on a deal or whatever is completely irrelevant. I mean, it's not irrelevant, but from a relationship building perspective, from leveraging comments, that's where the money is. Like, genuinely, it's not, right there. The pot of gold doesn't sit next to every person, but that is your route into the company.
And that is it. When you're looking at companies, everybody tells me the one person. They're trying to find this mythical unicorn that sits somewhere in the company and magically picks up the phone when you call.
Ah!
But it's actually usually a series of people. And I say
Mhm,
series because they're all connected by what you sell and the problem and the solution and how it's felt. And so the analyst up. So once you found out that that problem is felt on a frequent basis, that is your go up, move up the ladder.
mhm.
And how you choose to go and use that relationship is up to you and your style of selling. But this is where the commenting comes in because now you've earned somebody to be a loyal follower. They'll follow you as you're posting content that'll get shared. And this is how you unlock time as a seller instead of being bound by the one-on-ones that you can facilitate.
Mhm.
And so with that series is you never want to talk to somebody higher than who owns the P&L you're trying to get into.
Yeah.
And so too many people overshoot it and it's not relevant. And a lot of the time it's a director or it's a manager depending on how big that purchase is. You got to really understand who owns that P&L, but first you got to find out there's actually a problem we're solving. And this is what gets missed all the time. The reason why good cold callers still book meetings because their problem statement is dialed in.
Mhm.
Why do people book meetings still with emails? Because their problem statement is dialed in. Why does social selling work? Because you understand your customer and you're showing people instead of just telling them. But the thing I love about social selling too is that you can also do all this research to get better. And so I leverage social selling as my core, as my anchor. But those people, once you've done your research, that's your open door to make a cold call or send an email when you're comfortable because there's your personalization because you're highly relevant to their problem as it's felt.
It's actually interesting. I was just thinking, I did partnership work for a number of years, and I would interact with all sorts of CEOs, of multi-billion-dollar investment funds, and, like, people who have both a lot of money and a lot of resources and are very busy. And the funniest thing happens when you overshoot. When you talk, and this would happen, just galas are a great example of this. If you ever go to a fancy gala and you sit down at a table and the CEO's there, or multiple different CEOs are there, and a couple of them are the right fit. You have a great conversation, you make a connection, they understand the value that you provide. Every single time they would hand me off to somebody else. So in my head, it's great to have the blessing of the CEO, but a lot of that is the function of just going to a nice gala event and them being sort of generous with their time and passing me along to somebody. The the results of that work, they never check in on, because they trust their people to do their job. They're like, "Oh yeah, they'll figure it out. If it works for our company, they will do it." So when we're doing cold outbound sales instead of partnership work, well, not necessarily cold, but we're doing an outbound motion and not partnership work, when we overshoot, we reach the wrong people who don't care about the results anyways. And so it's so important to think, like, if I was to meet this person at a gala, would they be the person to sign off, or would they pass me along to somebody else?
So right now when we're thinking about this and we're reflecting on it, throw it in the comments.
Hmm.
What is your typical persona that you sell to? And if you want and you're comfortable saying, do they pick up?
Yeah.
Do they respond?
Hmm.
And that is a sign that either your message is off and it's not resonating, or the channel is the wrong fit. And I'll tell you, whether it's cold call, email, or social, it's good to use a blend, but the research always comes first.
It's always important. All right, we got one last comment strategy as people are dropping those in the comments, which we'd love to review. Nick, let's dive in.
We did ask for help,
Uh-huh.
We said find relevant conversations. We
Uh-huh.
said influencers.
Oh, I meant influencers. Did we not? I
That's okay.
okay.
I think we actually did put a couple more into the book. Trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, I actually wanted to add something on influencers. That was why I was like, sorry,
Oh,
we're
okay.
still a
Yeah,
little
fire away.
rusty.
Fire
Come
away.
back. Um, the thing that you, Nicholas, have mastered more than I have is looking for ICP personas inside influencers' comments
Oh yeah.
and the community in the comments. And you are really good at this. I'm still like figuring it out and I'm a little rusty when it comes to it, but you are particularly masterful at this. So, what do you look for when you're looking for your ICP personas in somebody's comments, in an influencer's comments?
The biggest thing I watch for is quality of question.
Okay.
So how related is it to the problem or the actual post? And I'm wondering where they go, and I actually reflect it back to their title to understand why they're asking. So is
Mm,
it tied to their roles and responsibilities, or is it just something that they're interested in learning? If it's tied to their roles and responsibilities and it's a problem that's being felt, it's a sign and symptom that they're feeling pain and I should probably reach out. And so what's the best way to test that? Just comment, have a conversation, and reach out to them and keep that conversation going forward. But why would you put all your ducks in one basket? Well, I'll put all your eggs in one row.
exactly.
Comment on 5 to 10.
Hmm.
And what you're doing is, I get asked this all the time too, is like, well, you don't want to like monopolize somebody's comments. So I use the rule of 1% or 10%, somewhere in between there.
Hmm.
So if they have 400 comments and you comment on somewhere between 4 and 40, they're never going to notice,
Yeah.
especially if you're not pitching in the comments and you're just showing up in a way that is helpful.
Hmm.
But this is your market research. This is you having good conversations to understand what is going on in their world. And by just having a conversation and building that understanding, this amazing thing happens. And it has become a little bit of a game with me now. And Morgan knows what this is. I don't like pitching
Uh-uh.
unless I'm asked.
Hmm.
So I realized that when somebody really understood me and they felt like I've invested in them, they always ask, so what do you do? Or is this something you can help with? Every single time. And I'm like, yeah, I can. Would you like to go in? I can go move this to the DMs, or we could go and have a meeting to discuss. Every single time. And what it does is, instead of having that conversation once, because I'm talking to my key persona that owns that P&L, and they have friends that don't comment or post, they see that, and they usually also have smaller networks because they're not well networked on LinkedIn. And so you're not fighting with as many people to show up in feed, top of feed, and now you are top of mind because you're talking to someone they trust. And this is why this is such a, I'll call it a hack, because it really is. Like, I can get meetings with people I have no business getting meetings with in fast.
Hmm.
And it's just because they have asked me for a meeting because I've shown that I understand their world and what they're responsible for.
Yeah. I I see we've have a couple of comments and I'll let them continue to flow in. The last thing that had popped into my head, which is less of a strategy and more of just like, I don't know, an option that might be at your disposal, is to it's to tell a joke, right? Like it's to it's to use a little humor and use a little affirmation of what they said. And this is hard. Like if you're not confident with the fact of like communicating this is a joke, especially if it's sarcastic, it might flop. So you have to be confident that somebody will understand it is a joke. But it is a great way to connect with somebody who's very active and actually to get attention from somebody who's a very high profile influencer. Because, so think of in the competitive landscape, everybody who's watching this, oh, Morgan, Nick, wow, you're amazing. I love this strategy. So you go out and start using it. Well, a lot of the comments out there will then start to sound the same or look the same. And even if you look at very visible and active influencers and you scroll through the comments, a lot of the comments actually are close to the same thing. And a lot of them are not even yes ands. A lot of them are just affirming the content of the post in so many words, right? They're not saying great posts, but they're basically saying great posts in so many words. And so when you jump in there with a little humor and affirmation, or even previously when we talked about asking for advice, asking for help, a question, that is a pattern interrupt to the person who's posting. So they, as they scroll through their own comments, they're like, oh, that's funny. I need to respond to that. Or, oh, that's such a good question. Let me answer that. Right. But humor's not for everyone, and it's definitely not for every situation. So I like a good sarcastic joke, but definitely like the emojis help in communicating like it's a joke and not just like plain text. It's important to be clearly understood, right?
But that's even a good thing when you have somebody that's high visibility and you've
Hmm.
earned that relationship where they know your humor
Hmm.
and they see you joking around and having fun with somebody that they dream of talking to. What do you think that says about you?
Yeah,
You're in.
you're in.
Everybody wants to be part of the club.
Hmm.
And so now people will start following you. Now they'll start wanting to connect with you and like it it's a snowball.
So Nick, let me ask you something because this is a reservation that a lot of people have, and skepticism that people have about the topic of today, which is, okay, great, I'm commenting, but I'm not getting any meetings, or like I'm commenting, but how do you actually ask for the meeting?
So there's this isn't I use Pareto's law on this one.
Hmm.
80% of the time I show them that I know them and they ask me for a meeting.
Yeah.
The other 20% of the time is because I have a great problem statement, not a pitch. The difference between a pitch and a problem statement is I'm just stating what others have told me. Some people might call it a pitch. I don't because most of my pitches I get are about a solution with no identification of a
We do
problem.
lead generation services.
Yeah,
Oh
and
God.
cool,
Okay.
good for
Cool.
you. Hey, I saw from your guys's, LinkedIn post, you get really great engagement. But what I've noticed is that people that get great engagement don't actually convert many to sales. And so there's a lot of extra effort that's left on the table that you guys could capitalize on.
Is that something you're experiencing? Is that, are you interested in learning more? Or,
Yeah. Are you
there's.
open to hearing how what you could, some of your options that you could take to
Mhm,
go and fix that?
mhm,
But what you're talking about is a problem as you've seen it.
mhm.
If you can talk about what you've seen, you have earned the right. That is like Sam Sales, show me that you know me. Great person to follow, Sam McKenna. You got to show them that you're paying attention, that you've done the hard work of diagnosing and that you understand their role. And so 80% of it is just good conversation talking about problems and offering different solutions based on what you know and just genuinely being helpful.
Yeah.
And then when you see somebody that when you get really deep into the questions, you're like, no, this one's a little bit big for me to answer in the comments. Would you be open to a meeting to go and dive in?
Mhm.
And when you're doing this 30 minutes a day to an hour a day, it snowballs and it carries over a few days, if not weeks. And you would be amazed. And I know Morgan's shaking his head where it's like, I posted that like 3 weeks ago and
Yeah.
somebody's liking it or commenting on it or asking me about it in the DMs.
Mhm.
This is where, like any other outbound strategy, it's all about consistency. So if you're just doing this randomly when you have time, this is why it usually doesn't work. If you schedule in the time and do it consistently, like time block it a half an hour, either once or twice a day, and have a method to your madness, this is when it starts to produce results consistently because you run it like an experiment, you run it like a campaign so you can dial it in. Who are you commenting on? What influencers are you following? Ooh, these ones actually, aren't really getting me this not that much traction. Okay, pivot, switch. Okay, next. These
Mhm.
ones are better. They're doing better than those last ones because now you can compare it to something. Oh, these problems that I'm searching for, I'm not really finding that many conversations. Let's go and tweak it. Let's find something else. Run it like a campaign, put it in your calendar, and this is how it becomes repeatable. The hardest part is we don't talk about this with other people. We only complain when it doesn't work.
Right.
But when we are taking the initiative to turn it into a campaign, we are comparing it against what we did before. And sometimes what we did before worked better than what we're doing now, so we switch back. But this is the whole thing, is you're constantly updating as you go. But if
Mhm.
you don't have consistency, you'll never see those patterns. You'll never build that recognition that, like Morgan was saying, that I have that with influencers and diving through the comments. Morgan has this with feedback on comments.
Mm.
Morgan gives really generous feedback in a way that's received very well, and he has turned it into an art. Go look at his comment, go on his page, go to activities and look through his comments, all activities, and look how Morgan leaves comments. We all have something that we do better than other people. And when you go and lean into this, fully lean into this process, you'll start to go and see some of that come out. And that's when you triple down. Don't just triple down because you're bad at it. Triple down on where you're getting better results than anyone else. And that is when you have an unfair advantage that wins.
Mhm. One little bonus tip for everyone who's with us at the near close to the end of our hour today. When you have 3 back and forth conversations
Oh,
in the
yeah.
comments, send a connection request blank.
Boom.
Or if you are really, really keen to accelerate the conversation, to keep the conversation going immediately, then personalize it in a way that relates to the conversation you are having in the comments. So basically, what you're doing is you are transitioning the conversation that you had back and forth, 3 comments. And let's clarify this, not original comment, reply, reply. No, 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 no. Original comment, reply, 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 right? Like 3 back and forths, and send a connection request.
Three
And
round
if you
trips.
if you personalize it and you say, man, I loved our conversation, and then ask a question as a way to continue the conversation, but in the DMs now instead of in the comments, you can both get more detailed and granular, and you can also accelerate the conversation to a booked meeting. So the reason that you might want to do a blank connection request is if you just want to be connected to the person, and the conversation was good, but there was not much more to talk about, or they're not a super high profile lead, and that's fine, but you're still connected with them. But from a direct sort of um, engagement strategy, that is how you transition from comments into conversations in the DMs, is literally just getting somebody to engage, build the relationship, continue doing so. Now you're just doing it in the DMs.
The one thing I'll add that is like a beautiful touch to this that I've noticed has a huge accelerating factor.
Mm.
DMs are private.
Hmm.
So if what you're talking about isn't private, keep it in public. Let it do the work for you, because other people are going to raise their hand, or aren't going to raise their hands but have the same questions. If it's private, that is a good, when you're going switching from public comments to a DM in that connection request, ask a private question that's respectful and doesn't push on boundaries.
Hmm.
Hey, I was looking at your guys' website based on like what we were commenting on, and it looks like you guys are doing this. What's that been like? How's that working for you? And play with that language, and you'll get it dialed in over time where it just becomes a regular conversation, so there's no pressure.
Mm-mm. Hmm.
Now it's
Banger.
private. Now they're like, that actually we've been trying to go and work on that. I'm like, yeah, I have a few ideas of how I could help, or that would probably help you and your team. Would you be open to a meeting? Or would you be interested in hearing them?
Hmm.
Open door.
Open door. Um, Nick and everybody who's here, if you liked this, if you like this kind of content, and you're looking to upgrade your social selling strategy, you can go to either of our profiles and find our LinkedIn in 30 Minutes course. It helps you build a daily playbook, a daily routine. This is part. What we covered today is part of one of our modules on a comment strategy in LinkedIn in 30. I think it's module 5. We have a bunch of other stuff about engagement and revenue and metrics of success and creating content and finding your ideal audience to some degree and leveraging LinkedIn daily in a way that doesn't overtake and consume your life. Like we all got emails to send and deals to navigate and all the rest of it. LinkedIn doesn't have to be an 8 hour a day job. It can literally be 30 minutes a day. That's all you need. So if you like that, check out either of our profiles. We got links there, or you can go to b2bpowerhour.com and grab your coffee. Coffee. I need to grab my
Coffee.
coffee. Grab your copy of the course.
One thing I will add for you guys is we made a conscious choice to make this a living document
Mm-hmm.
because things change over time. And so we actually update this almost once a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. So, and I get asked all the time, can I ask you questions after? Yes, please.
Please.
Please do. Shoot me a
Please,
DM,
God.
shoot me an email. Yeah. So
Uh, that's awesome. Isabella, the link was b2bpowerhour.com, or you can just go to either of our profiles and we have it in our featured sections to grab LinkedIn in 30 minutes. We got a big engagement strategy update coming soon, which I'm thrilled for. Uh-huh.
that it was a small thing and it became a big thing.
I think we're at like 20 pages now. It's kind of
I don't
crazy.
want to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. Any last questions? Please drop them in chat as we offer our closing thoughts today. We'd love to answer them. Nick, closing thoughts on booking meetings with comments.
Having a consistent strategy and a consistent routine gives you the ability to dial things in and figure out where you naturally excel. It also allows you to dial in who you should be talking to and what is the best way to route into accounts. That is unique to individuals because maybe your parents were in C suites, so you understand that conversation. Maybe you volunteered with VPs, so you understand that role. Leverage your natural strengths, but use consistency to tease them out until it's evident that you have an unfair advantage. And then use that. If the research you've done is, points you in a direction of somebody you should talk to and you have great information, it's still okay to email and cold call. You don't
Yes.
just have to social sell. You can layer. And as sellers, the more layers we can add realistically, the more consistency we build in our pipeline. And commenting is just one of those layers that work really, really well.
Absolutely.
Morgan?
I think my closing thought is that I always look for leverage. And this is in everything I do. And maybe it's just how I think about the world. But like and maybe it's because I'm consistently am I lazy? I don't think I'm lazy, but I'm definitely always looking for like how can I get the most done with the least amount of effort. And that's true
You?
in me. I know,
No. Okay,
but
me too.
like how quickly can I get this done? Like what sorts of results can I get out of this? And there's a lot of things you can do with LinkedIn, right? You can comment, you can do content, you can connect with people, you can do DMs, you can attend events like these, you can send spammy messages, you can use automation and get thrown in LinkedIn jail. You can
It's a real
use
thing.
LinkedIn in so many ways. But as I think about all of the different strategies and tactics that somebody has at their disposal, commenting is just the highest leverage that you have. It is the fulcrum point. If you want to move mountains, start with commenting. Because right now, the record for booking a meeting off of a comment is 17 minutes.
Jacob.
So an SDR did not believe us and said, fine, I'll try it. And 17 minutes later, got a request for a meeting. So when I think about leverage, this is where it is because you're not spammy, you're not pitch slapping, you're not doing cold outbound. You are using the platform as it's designed to create trust, to create relationships, and you are leveraging that in a meaningful way for your sales process. That's the power of commenting. And also let us know if you beat the 17-minute record. We'd love to feature you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Screenshots, please.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. All right, everyone. I think that's it, right? I haven't been here in a few weeks, so we do these every Friday. I'll see you next week.
Take care, everyone. And for those that are wondering, yes, this is recorded. So if you tag people in the comments, the recording will be available in about 5 seconds when I hit off. Thanks,
Uh-huh.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.